Well, President Trump wrapping up his first day of meetings with Chinese leader Xi Jinping, and the deals are already coming.
On behalf of all of the great delegation that we have the greatest businessmen, the biggest, and I guess the best in the world. We have amazing people, and they're all with me. Every single one of them, and they're here today to pay respects to you and to China, and they look forward to trade and doing business, and it's going to be totally reciprocal on our behalf.
Xi telling American CEOs and the president that China will open its door wider to U.S. businesses, and it's already begun. The U.S. reportedly just cleared more NVIDIA chip sales, and Trump says China will buy 200 Boeing jets. As for Iran, the two sides agreed Tehran can't control the Strait of Hormuz, and the White House says Xi is now considering buying more U.S. energy.
President Xi would like to see a deal made. He would like to see a deal made. And he did offer, he said, if I can be of any help at all, I would like to be of help. Because,
he did say that.
Yeah, he did say that. And look, anybody that buys that much oil has obviously got some kind of a relationship with him. But he said, I would love to be of help. If I could be of any help whatsoever, he'd like to see the Hormuz Strait open.
Well, DeRoy, it sounds pretty cordial around those parts, and apparently there's some deal-making happening. But are you happy to hear that?
Yeah, I think it's a good thing when the President of the United States and the leader of the second biggest economy in the world are getting along well and not beating the hell out of each other. I think it's a lot warmer and friendlier and more cheerful than expected. I saw as the president arrived, you had all these little Chinese kids jumping up and down, waving flags, jumping up and down a lot. They're probably exhausted by now. But it's good also to see Xi Jinping say that he agrees with President Trump that Iran may not have an atomic weapon. I'd like to see him follow through with that by saying that to the Iranians, any Ayatollahs who are still alive, that he can talk to, we're not going to provide you any weapons. You need to sit down with the President of the United States and come up with some sort of a peace agreement. And as I've said about 6 weeks ago on this very set, I think one of the things that could be very helpful is for the Chinese to send warships into the Strait of Hormuz along with the U.S., with our NATO allies, et cetera, and open the Strait of Hormuz, get those ships out. I mean, those sailors, some of them they're practically starving. They've not had any food or any movement there in weeks. China gets most of its petroleum and gas through the Strait of Hormuz. It's very much in their national interest to do that. It would be very helpful for them to come in and help us out with that effort.
Well, I just would note, I don't know if when China moves warships in, if they move them out real quickly, but we could discuss that if others at the table want to.
They might stay, which would be a problem, but hopefully they can move things along there.
That's the problem.
So here's, Taylor, I've been wanting to ask you this question since the first hour when we were talking about Mythos, we were talking about deals. We got the NVIDIA chip deal. Now, I know it's for H200s, which are not the Cadillac chip. It's more the Buick chip, I guess. Okay. I don't know.
Is that lower quality?
Yes, it's a little lower end. Buicks are fine. Okay, so we got the deal. But we had this conversation about, how should we feel about AI? And do we fear it? Is it helpful to us? And I don't know where we landed, but we were kind of talking about, well, it kind of depends who's deploying it and for what purposes. And I just wonder, do you love technology deal making with China that gives them chips to keep moving forward on AI?
I do. I have this probably horrible, endless optimism that even if they get the H200s and they try to do it, I just believe in our capitalist system that we can out-innovate China, always. I mean, you heard Trump there. He brought in, I don't know, estimates from $12 to $15 trillion in market cap just by the 10 to 15 guys sitting behind him. That's half of our economy. Just like there. So if you're telling me that those guys, our best and brightest, can outsmart China, I guess that's where maybe I'm too of an optimist, where I think, yes, AI is powerful, and yes, their version of the Mythos could be horrible, but I guess I just believe that we can always out-innovate and that we can always win and outmaneuver, because capitalism inevitably will move faster than communism. A couple things as well, just on sort of that AI. I mean, you talked about that, Brian, the H200s. We have to see if they actually want to follow through with that. You guys, TSMC thinks that this is going to be a $1.5 trillion market now by 2030. So if those companies want sort of access to the market, I think that's where we're going to have to do some deal making with China because they're going to get their hands on it anyway. So why not let those American companies benefit from it? Or in TSMC's case, a Taiwanese company. Plus, Lauren Simonetti's latest email is coming through.
I read those at 2:15 a.m. after I check the 2-year
After
Treasury.
you check the bond yields. She's saying that it looks almost full. Iran's storage capacity looks tight. We're almost there.
Okay.
So as we're thinking about economic maneuvering with Iran, there's sort of another piece to the puzzle.
You want in on the debate about chips, technology, AI in China, deal making?
Well, I wonder because has been reporting that that Iran and China were opening rail transportation more so.
Heard about that.
This was probably 10 days ago. So, okay, the oil storage is near full, but are they able to send oil on tankers?
Can be done.
Right, to China.
Hopefully
and
it's like
parts unknown.
California's train and it's not up yet.
No, the train line exists.
Oh, they know how to do them, and okay.
The train line, there's a rail line that exists. It just they're running more trips on said rail line. And this has been a focus of President Trump's policy, even starting in his first term. With Iran and Russia, Ukraine, our ability to manufacture cheap drones at volume is a weakness. That if you look at the gains, like Iran, what it was able to do and is able to do with drones, Ukraine still in the fight against Russia, Russia's having trouble defeating Ukraine because of drones. Will we, the United States, ever be able to produce the volume of inexpensive drones that China can? And would we be able to defend ourselves or an entity, an island or a nation, against a drone storm? When we don't have a solution against a country that can create and build drones at that capacity.
You could go drones if you want to on that one. You could go oil and whether they're running out of tanker capacity, or we could talk a little bit more about this chip sale thing. And do we love that China's getting our stuff? Do we trust them that the deal making is going to work out as well for us as it might work out for them?
Can I hit a few of those
Hit 'em
by
all.
going to this?
Go through them.
But through this other avenue of President Trump asking them to open up, right? They're
Yes.
a communist country. They have come a long way in, say, the last 30 years. I saw pictures this morning of our correspondents in Beijing and anchors that are reporting there. And the city looks completely different than it looked when I was there 30 years ago. So they have come a long way. But to maintain their control, they still will have to keep the fundamental pieces of their structure in place. So I think they're gonna open up as much as they can, but they're not going to do full opening, which actually would benefit their people and growth for the country. You know, they don't have gangbuster growth anymore, and actually they've sort of fallen apart upon hard times. And without innovation and without being able to have an industry that will allow them to grow, AI is doing that for us, they're going to be stuck. But I'm just sort of wondering how their system, like Xi Jinping wants to rule the world, okay? How are you going to do that under this structure? He's trying to change it as much as he can, but fundamentally, unless you would just completely flip the apple cart over, you just can't do it. So I just find that tension very interesting. You're nodding.
Yeah.
Sure. On the AI piece, there was a really good piece that the New York Post ran. They picked it up from The Spectator, and it was on how much China engages in theft of our AI technology. And it isn't just breaking in and grabbing some chips and running out the door. Very clever stuff. Apparently, they'll set up chatbots, like 1,000 of them. They'll go in and go ask questions and query a particular AI program, and somehow or another learn from the way it answers 1,000 different queries, how it operates, and so on. It's very, very subtle, very sophisticated. So I hope as part of the discussions with Xi Jinping that President Trump tells him to knock this off.
You know, we talked to Victor Davis Hanson yesterday, and he makes this really interesting point about comparing China and Russia and the way that we engaged the Soviets during the Cold War and the way we engage China now. And he just makes the observation that we are so much more integrated with our greatest adversary now than we ever were with our great adversary then. And maybe you could say China's different than the Soviets, but he would argue fundamentally, I don't think so. They're both communists. And so it was interesting to hear his skepticism of wanting to do deals with China right now that he believes just are not going to work out in a reciprocal way. I wonder if that's something we've generationally, because the Cold War is so far in the rearview mirror, we've actually lost the ability to think that way. Thoughts on that?
No, that's a great point. But how do we uncouple? We can't. I mean, we can, but that's painful. So we've tried the onshoring and the nearshoring. We tried the tariff thing. So we're going to have to then learn the hard way. As Jason said, we tried opening up them in the WTO, the World Trade Organization, and that's how we got here today. So we're going to just, it's not a good answer, but
it's a big question to ask at the end of a block. But I do think in the context of these negotiations, it's worth pondering, how has our cultural position changed with regard to China compared to where we were as a culture? And he makes the point that Democrats were a Democrat vis-a-vis the Soviet Union is so different than a Democrat now vis-a-vis China. And he says that's one of our big political weaknesses, actually.
That definitely was a big difference. Having lived through the Cold War, a lot of the Democrats who weren't great on taxes and spending were very good about, okay, we have to oppose communism and bring down the wall, et cetera, et cetera. The other thing is, I can't remember any significant product we relied on for the Soviet Union. I mean, we didn't get anything from there.
Right.
Versus China, you go in a store, everything is made in China. So we're decoupling, as you say, long, difficult, and painful. We weren't coupled with the Soviets back during the Cold War.
Right. We long treated the Soviet Union and the USSR as a threat to not just our way of life, but to our lives.
Absolutely.
And a grave threat to the American experiment. We've never treated China appropriately as the appropriate enemy and adversary. Is it enough that they stole the livelihoods and futures of certainly everybody I grew up with in my community? It was just wiped out by the companies that shipped jobs overseas, and in exchange, folks got to go work at Walmart or buy cheap inflatable crap from Walmart that we could put in our front yards. And then they unleashed a virus on the United States and killed more than 1.2 million Americans? And we haven't done anything about that either. We just keep sitting back.
I think it's going to come to blows the way the Iran issue has finally come to the surface after 47 years. It could be 30 years, it could be 50 years with China, but you're going to have to face it head on. But nobody wants to. Right now, still, diplomacy seems to be the answer.
Well, it's still face-to-face conversations right now, but you never know what might come from those